Please welcome Padma Priya, an IC Agile accredited coach, award-winning speaker, and Agile pioneer with over 20 years of experience transforming teams worldwide. A true trailblazer, she is also a recipient of two prestigious national honors, the Rashtrapati Award and the Rajya Purishkar, recognizing her lifelong commitment to excellence and service. Please give a huge round of applause for Padma Priya.
Thank you. Hello. Hi. Very good morning. Happy to see a full house of learners. Thanks for all your support. First of all, my thanks to the organizers for this opportunity. So now we are just going to do something rather listening something. I think a couple of hours of listening. In fact, I'm going to continue with the keynote of the earlier speaker on the Kanban with the ROSI as the, so how to implement that into your system will be the next 1 hour's talk. So this is called I&I framework. It comes from the Agile metric books. Most of you know saw that. So why I am going to speak on this topic? How am I qualified to speak on this topic? Because this is from a profound research. I've been doing this for almost 4-5 years. I have compiled this into book. From that, I'm going to share one framework with you, which will be a ready-made takeaway for you to go and implement back into your teams or systems or organizations or in any levels in that case. Okay. Why metrics? Why we have to measure first of all? Anything which we always talk about continuous improvement, right? We speak and we forget and we go for dinner or breakfast. But the fact is, it should be wired in our roadmap. Metrics is not something you have to do, complete and then go and measure. It should be wired in the initial roadmap itself, okay? So this comes from Lord Kelvin, from which there is an inspired version by Peter Drucker. So this one, metrics are for continuous improvement, not just for monitoring, okay? This is a mindset we have to clear before even dwelling into the metrics. We always think, okay, we have to set, funny part is for a team member, we will set a metric. We will ensure that they are either achieving it or not achieving it to reward them or punish them in their coming appraisals, am I right? That's the worst place you can deploy metrics. Please do not do that if you really want improvement in your system. Okay, so primary disclaimer, metrics is for continuous improvement. Deal? Okay. So what are all the primary problems in organizations in implementing metrics? So these are all very common pattern I have identified. You can really add to that if you have something in your list, okay? The first one is misaligned metrics. They select inappropriate metrics and they keep on measure, which is not at all needed for the teams or for that system in that case. Could be product area or for organizations. See, if you are selling a product, the metrics should be different. If you are selling a service, it should be different, right? Based on B2B, B2C, for everything it is different, right? But a problem for us is, we are aware of the product or the service, but we are not completely aware of what metrics we have to measure at all, right? In that fact, I can even say, I realize that for my organization, churn rate is very important after getting a hit. So again, I've learned that by mistake, but you can learn that by knowledge, right? Next one is impact on distraction risk. The problem is this misselection of, it will distract the teams in various means because we have not kept them focused with the North Star metric, what we call with the what required metric of the team, right? So this leads to many disruption in the system. We think that the team is working, producing value, but ideally not. They are not really producing what the organization needs. So how to overcome that? The first simple step you can start is, do not unify the metrics for all teams. How many teams in your organization, be it single digit or double digit or triple digit, we will have one single metric. And in fact, that metric is not at all a metric. We will think that it is a metric and we will keep on tracking. Am I right? Can you name few metrics which you are tracking as of now? We will demystify some of the metrics. nothing to appreciate or something. This is just a learning. What is a common metric you are calling out in your teams? Be it whatever the process you have deployed. Sorry? KPIs? Okay. Most? Okay, fine. What else? Velocity? Okay. Velocity is actually not a metric. It's just a data, right? With the data, you can derive any metric if you want. And for Scrum teams, people will always see this burn down chart, which is very useful, pretty useful, but it is not a metric. It's a chart with the data from which you have to derive the metric. Just from the burn down chart, you can derive almost 20 metrics. Can you believe this? But we are not either aware or we are not giving attention to that. Either of this, right? So do not unify the metrics. Do not select. See, North Star metrics is on the OKR level. For overall organization where you have to reach, you can set one overall metric. But that metric should boil down into key performance indicators or key results for each team. When it is boiling down for each one of the system, the metrics also has to be customized. Logical? Right? That is what we are not doing. We are setting the goal. We are setting the North Star metric. But when we are boiling it, we are not really giving attention to select the appropriate metric. Okay, now how to do that? Now let's clear that issue and go out of this room. How to do that? So we are just proposing something called I&I metrics. So what is that? First, before going into this, building the matrix of this one, let's do some preparatory stuff. In your goodies bag, which is wonderfully given, please take a paper and a pen. It's an hands-on exercise. So first, what we will do is, there are various layers of measuring, right? First, we have to put what is in scope, what is out of scope. In your paper and pen, first write, the first step is what you are going to measure. It could be individually you, or it could be your team, or it could be your program area, or it could be your whole product area or business unit or organization level. So for each one of it, it differs. So first, we are very clearly defining what you are going to measure, okay? So if it is team level or organizational level, there will be one red button, right? That pointer, laser pointer. Okay, I think that button is not available. Okay, organizational level or business metrics. So write what is in scope, what is out of scope, quickly. I am going to measure my team metric, or I am going to focus on my organizational level, or a product area level, program level, whatever, your span of influence we call it, right? What you can influence in your organization. You cannot change the whole business unit, am I right? But you can influence your system. So write what is your span of influence, team or program area or whatever it is. Done? The next step is, if you have done in scope and out of scope, just shortlist 5 bottlenecks for that in scope region you have selected. Do not select the out of scope areas. For the item, see, usually when I ask what are the bottlenecks, we usually say, okay, the requirements are not clear, or testing is taking too much time, right? Which is all very visible. Now take 2 minutes. Relax, take a breath, and think of various other factors along with this factor, which are all bottlenecks. It could be of any factor, right? It could be, say, for example, some hidden factors like intrinsic motivation is not available for the team, or there is a sudden drop in their productivity because of, a person in your team is having a, breakup with their girlfriend or whatever it is, right? And there could be some reason that there is a conflict between team members, which is just boiling underneath. You are not visibly seeing it, but you have to think of that, because these are all the factors also affecting the system. So along with your quantifiable factors, write what are all the factors which is apart from that affecting the system also. Okay, both quantifiable and qualitative and quantifiable. Please write just 5, not more than that. Let's limit the WIP for that. Okay, great. Now Todd introduces a female Kanban expert called Rosie. Am I right? Yeah. Now what Rosie did, we have to do. So what she did, she identified these areas and she did the exercise of how we can overcome that, right? So now what you have to do is take this 5 items and just put it in other column. What will be the appropriate action? Do not think that as a metric. For example, there is a conflict. What could be the primary factor of that conflict? It could be lack of, some relationship we have to build with the team, right? It cannot be done immediately, but we have to address that for sure, right? So, write what is the appropriate exact opposite of that metric, the problem areas you have shortlisted. You have written a roadblocks, right? 5 roadblocks. What if happens that roadblock will be cleared? Please write that. That's it. Do not think that as a metric. If you are done, you just give a thumbs up. Yeah. Something for few factors you cannot determine immediately what could be done. Keep it on hold. Okay. There could, out of that 5, quickly you will write down for 3 items, right? Last 2 items you will might have some struggles. That is practical. Let it be there. Let's move on. The next is called, whatever you have built is nothing but a metric backlog. So you have a metric backlog in your hand for your teams or your span of influence readily. With that, now we are going to identify how to really act on that metric. Okay. Let me give a quick overview. So step 1, we have identified what is the scope of measurement. Am I right? And step 2, we shortlisted 5 bottlenecks. We considered the factors of process data, stakeholder inputs, root causes, right? This is where comes all people side and process side of the problems and prioritize based on the impact. Now, step 3, we have mapped the appropriate metric of the bottleneck. For few, whatever you are able to identify. For few which is not, that's fine. Let it be there, okay? Until here, this is called metric backlog. In the same Agile metric book, I've given something called the metric backlog. There are some 5 to 6 pages in the chapter 1 itself. Based on this metric backlog, a blueprint for you to implement step-by-step implementation of metric in your system. But I'm not going to cover all those. I'm going to cover only that matrix stuff, which will be a ready-made takeaway. For further, you can read the whole chapter. So this is an acronym given for metrics backlog. So what is the acronym we follow for the product backlog? What is the parameter we have to satisfy for keeping a product backlog very healthy? Invest. Do you know invest? Yeah? What does I stands for? Then valuable, right? We have something, right? For invest. Similarly, for metric backlog, whatever you build, please keep this acronym. Keep it focused. Keep it observable. Okay? And then concise. It should be in upward trend. That is nothing but an leading indicators, right? And it should be scalable. Or in other words, according to our keynote speaker, it should be growable, not scalable. Okay? So keep it, the backlog should be very clean. See, this one applies for any methodology you are following. It doesn't need to be an hardcore agile or a waterfall or a mix of it. Some people call, yesterday we were joking, we have waterfall now for agile fall. So whatever the mix of stuff you are having, you can really implement it irrespective of whatever you're following. Am I right? But keep this backlog very live. Review it at least for in a rhythmic timeline, say quarterly once or whatever it is, but keep it live. Okay? This is the core. Now we are going to map the metrics in something called I and I matrix. Now what is I and I matrix? Last night we completed our dinner, we went to hotel, I started to prepare. I found that this graph is not perfect. So I dwelled into almost like 5 AI tools. AI tools gave me some wonderful pictures like this, but it was not able to write the y-axis. It is perfect on x-axis. Can you see low, medium, high? And it was able to put these stickies based on the inputs I gave. Why I'm saying this is, AI is essential. AI is not an optional. AI is not futuristic. AI is live. AI is today's stuff, not tomorrow's stuff. Everything is agreed. And it is not even something, a distant dream. It's today's reality. But AI cannot do everything. Is a testimony I had last night. I slept only at 4:30. You know the reason? From 10:30 to 4:30, I was exploring on how to write this, make AI to write horizontal. And I finally ended up with, writing in MS Word, Microsoft Word. Copy pasting, again, it was having a lot of troubles. Okay, this is, again, where we stand on AI is tough. You cannot do everything with AI. Am I right? Yesterday, when I was talking with Kiro in the dinner, when we asked about AI, he said wonderful stuff. Like we have a new creature in the world, right? Like an animal, like a dog or a god even, right? AI is something there to assist you, partner with you, come along with you. But that doesn't mean it is going to replace you with one condition. If you are not ready to learn that, it will replace you. If you are ready to learn, you doesn't need to have any technical background, any coding knowledge, or all it needs is some inquisitive curiosity, right? Learning. If it is there, you can adapt Agile, and AI can adapt yourself and also Agile. Okay? Okay, coming back. This x-axis is impact. Please draw a matrix of, first the x-axis, a long one with 3 quadrants, low, medium, high. And that is the impact column. The x-axis is the impact column with low, medium, high, which means low impact, medium impact, high impact. Clear? The y-axis is nothing but the implementation timeline. So, is it long time implementation or an intermediate implementation or an immediate attention it is needed for that metric? From that problem area, right? You have listed 5. Out of the first one would be very pressing need for the team to clear to move forward. Am I right? So, which means it could be probably of immediate attention with high impact. So, with your 5 metrics you have shortlisted, right? Kindly map into, is it a high impact immediate implementation, which will be here near WIP limit, or, if it is an high impact, but still implementation will be intermediate or a long term, you cannot take immediately. For example, see here, trust. Can you handle the trust issue of a thing in a iteration, in a sprint? You cannot do, right? It takes some time. So it is needed. It is high impact. Trust is very primary. It has to be attended. So it is high impact, but it is a long implementation. So it is here in this quadrant. So likewise, medium impact, intermediate, or low impact, immediate. Low impact, intermediate. So y-axis is primarily the timeline. X-axis is based on the impact. So that's why it is called I and I, impact and implementation time zone. So based on this, in your hand, you have actions you have listed, right? That 5 bottlenecks, you have taken some actions, right? Map that, what is more impactful for your team, number 1. Number 2, what is the timeline? Is it a long term, intermediate, or short term? What is there in this quadrant of high impact, immediate implementation? Is the metric which you have determined there or the action you have written there, is this the one you are currently measuring in your system? Yes or no? If it is yes, you have already been aligned. If it is no, we have to revisit, inspect, adapt, move on. Am I right? I'm currently consulting for a wonderful organization where when I went inside, the problem was chaotic process and a single metric. So with this I&I framework, we cleared up stuff. We implemented first the process, the ground clearance, right? We implemented some primary repair in the system, and then we slowly started to implement the metrics based on the maturity of the teams. Again, metrics is not unified for all the teams in all the maturity. If a team is starting up, the metrics can be different. Okay? So now for almost the last 12 months, we have been on program level, I am saying, we were measuring predictability as a metric. It was in 50% when I entered the system, 52% something. Now, I'm so happy to say that we are consistently above 85%. And we even touched 100, but that's in Maya. We know that it's not something which is static. But somewhere between 85 and 90, we are there. Which is very great thing, right? In few months of time, we are able to build a stability. It's not productivity, right? Predictability is not going to give you the productivity index. But we are very sure that they are now stability for the 36 teams, not for 1 or 2 teams. 36 teams. Now, should I sit with the same predictability watching that same stuff for years together as a coach? No, right? We have to move on. So, for each one of the teams, we have set individual metrics already. So, for example, for one of the teams, they are taking 45 user stories in one sprint. So, how can they establish, right? So, now I have requested them with limit WIP. You cannot take more than 20 or whatever the numbers you have saturated. Please do not exceed it. For one another team, the problem is they overestimate already. So we have to address that. Some another team, there is problem of, the last minute drop down. You know this one? Waterfall inside a burn down. It will be like this, blah, 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 and then suddenly drop. So I have given that exercise to one of the team. So I said, for the next 3 sprints, you have to be very sure that at least it is coming like a step. We know it cannot be in free-flowing water like Todd said, right? But at least a step, something like that. Which is reasonable, right? So for each team, we have analyzed where they are struggling and we have given individual metrics. And for the whole system, we were really surprised to see what is high impact. The immediate implementation was epic cycle time for my organization. Because our epic cycle time has no proportions. The user stories were really okay, but still epics were really epics, like Ramayana, Mahabharata, going for decades together. I don't know who has named that name called epic. They could have given some other name, right? It's to a shorter time span. So we have a target of, okay, let's bring down that 300 days plus epic cycle time into 60 days is the exercise I am doing. So any system you are taking, there will be problem areas in that. The only thing is you have to be insightful in seeing that and addressing it. Okay, is this clear? Was the message clear? Were you able to build this I&I matrix, please? Because you can take this and go back. Especially you can start with this quadrant where limit WIP is present in your matrix. Please start with that to implement in your system. Believe me, you will see some tangible results, right? Any questions? If not, okay. So these are all some guidelines I have just provided for I&I matrix also. So impact level on your key bottlenecks. Do not take the least one and put it on the high impact stuff. Ease of implementation and data collection is also very important, right? Do not take as he said, something has to be deferred. Like out of that 5, if you are not able to derive a matrix for a bottleneck, it means that you cannot do it now. You have to defer it. You cannot take immediately. Take time to think on that and implement. And alignment with team goals, that should be there, right? You cannot go in other direction for whatever the North Star metrics is already set. And balance between leading and lagging indicators is also essential in metrics. So these are all the categories, right? Low impact metrics, medium impact, high impact, long term, medium impact, immediate, high impact. So 3 into 3, 9. 9, whatever the options you will get, please do not take the low impact. Take high impact, immediate implementation. Okay. Okay, we will have Q&A in that case. Okay, yeah. Can we have some discussion around this metrics? What you are measuring? What is your question? What is your struggle in implementing it? We can have a open session here, please. Yes, please.
In today's world of business, every business is here to make money.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is the bottom line.
Yes.
Now, when it is about making money, where are you spending money, let's say, to create a software? If you are a consulting company, okay? You are spending money in paying your people and the licensing cost of the tools that you're using. Now, when you're paying people, you need an ROI. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Now, when you're looking at an ROI, you always want to reward the doers and punish the non-doers. And that brings us to measuring productivity rather than the outcome that is being generated.
Yeah.
So value takes a backseat.
Yes.
And tangible
outcomes, immediate
output, not outcome.
Yeah.
Tangible output takes the front seat. Right? I've seen teams struggle with metrics, number of lines of code written.
Yeah.
Believe me.
How can this be a metric? Yeah.
Number of bugs resolved.
And
this is for everybody. I've seen teams creating nexus. Okay, so he's the developer coder and I am the tester. So we will say, boss, I need to meet my KRAs. So you just introduce 3 bugs, I'll resolve them.
That is the problem.
The problem is, now this is just the foundation. The problem is this is actually treated as metric.
Correct. That the problem is there. It is not about the number.
Because I was a coach and I thought it's very easy to solve this. I said, introduce defect density. And the team was so happy. I said, why are you so happy? Then outside, in an after party, they told me this is what we do.
Exactly.
Now, when this kind of problems, and I think this is region agnostic, industry agnostic.
Yes.
Everything. The problem is when your customer is paying, okay, he needs to know what your people, or he doesn't need to know, he wants to know how many consultants should I pay for. As a consulting company, I would want to deploy hundreds of my people there because it's billing per hour.
Correct.
Right? But is that value getting delivered by billing those many hours? Or by billing at least 50% of it, the same value could have been delivered? How can we measure and make our customers aware that the amount of billing that we are doing, or let's say the amount of man hours or work hours being put, is actually translating into value?
Yes. See, for this is an excellent question. But yeah, this question is around one domain of consulting. But there is one main takeaway from his question. When you are setting that KPIs or KRs or whatever you call as goals, right? Be very sure that you are setting based on the goals, not to measure their productivity. The biggest fact in IT industry is you cannot measure the productivity of a developer or a tester or any of ground software professionals. If you are keep on chasing that invisible leopard, you will get tired. Do you want to do that, or there is a visible, value stream running across you, right? Are you want to go along with that value stream? That is a big question before any IT organization in that case. So do not run behind this Maya of, which is cannot be done. With AI or without AI, can you measure? Nowadays, see, AI is going to write the code. All we need is a product person who are able to prompt rightly, develop the software, compile it and put it in a production. All we need the skill is to read or visualize the code, not write the code in few months of time. Can you understand my statement? In few months of time, you doesn't have to write code, but you have to think of code. When you think of write code, you can derive that code from the AIs and you can deploy it. So even in that case, you cannot measure productivity of either humans or AI. So we should not do that. We have to determine what is the value outcome of that system. Number one. Then this problem will be done. How? The person whom I am deploying into the system will bring you this value. How to measure that value? You can have a metric. Can you see the mapping? If you map the person for metric, humans are super intelligent. They will make all the numbers make you as if they have achieved when they are not achieved. There is one famous saying, right? There is only 3 lies. What is that? Lie, statistics, and data. Something like that. So do not do that, okay? So answer to your question is, we have to map that person to a value with a particular problem area and measure that recovery of that problem statement for that consultant using a metric. Then they are willing to, see if you are showing a result in say some 2 quarters, they are able to extend it for a couple of more quarters for the consultants. Am I right? The same case with all the employees. Good, thank you. Any other questions, please? Yeah. Can you please pass the mic?
Thank you, ma'am. We often develop softwares for other businesses like B2B. We are in B2B software business. So I feel personally the dilemma often in this matrix, there are some actions I want to do, but how as a consultant, what point of view you take? Like there can be a step, for example, I'm shifting from monolithic to microservices. This is a very long implementation for my team, but the impact will be very higher. But from the business point of view, they don't need to wait this long. They just need immediate. So this kind of dilemma, that which point of view you will choose on behalf of your team or on behalf of your client in this matrix.
Yeah, again mapping to value. So what to see? It is not about team or the people who are sitting as the stakeholders, right? It is about value. You have to develop something to show them when moving from the monolithic to the SOE, what are all the advantages the organization is going to get, what will be the ROI, how we can really scale faster in continuous delivery and give it to the clients of client faster. We have to work on that, number one. Number two, practical tip from me to address this problem, right? Because we know that in this matrix, okay, why it's not working? Yeah. In that I implementation and this high implementation and high stuff that you can handle, but when it is long implementation, how to influence? So what I have done is, see, in any of your role, be it from a developer to an COE or a project manager, you will have something called span of influence around you. It is not span of control. Control is like the tree which he showed, okay? So whom you report to or so on. But I'm not speaking about that. You will have something called span of influence around you. For example, a fellow project manager or a delivery manager or you are a developer or a VP of an organization. Not all VPs will be in your influential zone, but some can be. Am I right? So apart from this metric stuff or so on, Always try to increase your span of influence once you go to your leadership role. So what you can do, as I said, bring the data because leadership loves data. So with that data, slowly try to convince them on the ROI factors based on the data with your span of influence first. And with their influence and buy-in and support, take it to the next level leadership. This is something which I am practically doing, so I am sharing this with you. Even, see, for example, your network guy, your, HR, your admin, right, your finance, they all come under your span of influence, not span of control. Am I right? But you have to keep networking with them to expand that influence so that you are able to take this first, as a consultant, faster to the approval stuff. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Thank you. So I love metrics, right?
Okay.
But over my career, one of the things, so that the statement, you can't measure what you can't manage what you can't measure. I used to love that, and I've come to realize two things about it. One is there's an awful lot you can do without metrics. You can make a lot of improvements with absolutely no metrics, just subjectively.
Yes.
By observing, right?
Yes.
And so the thing I think that to me, a lot of times metrics is much more of a higher maturity. You have to have maturity before you can actually take on a metrics program. We see a lot of people wanting, oh, which metrics do I need? Because I got to do something. Actually, just do is manage with what you got sometimes and then get good enough at that. Because the worst thing than managing, if you have metrics, the worst thing than having no data is having bad data.
Correct.
And lots of people are measuring the wrong things or getting really bad data, and then managing based on that and making really horrendous decisions.
Yeah, it will make the system worse.
So the first thing is to understand really what you have.
Yes.
And then based on what you have, figure out, do we have anything that we can actually work from? Because a lot of people, they'll come from an environment and they've been using Jira to track their things, and their data is just such crappy data.
Yeah.
And they say, well, you need to do something about it. And they're making the totally wrong decisions. The first thing they need to do is clean up their mess. Right?
Yeah,
clean
agreed.
up their mess, and then you can make these small changes. And ultimately, then you want to get this wonderful metrics program because that's when you can really sing, right?
Yeah.
So
the second point, I completely agree with. You cannot measure with all this crappy data. But for your first point on first observe without metric, I want to clarify, and in that point, we always think metric only with data. How much you love your parents? Any data? Okay, forget about it. Spouse? Okay, so see, few things in our life you cannot measure it with data. Am I right? See, a bird which takes a long travel from north to south for their, the yearly stuff. Do they have a data in hand? But they are measuring, am I right? They are accurately measuring, am I right? So metrics can be with or without data. So that's why when I asked you to write the 5 bottlenecks, I was clearly citing that write both quantifiable and also observable data. Okay, so observation is also and measurement without data is what I want to clarify. Okay, number 1. So your metric backlog should contain both of this, all predictability, cycle time, whatever you want, okay, limit WIP or your PR review cycle time, your number of issues solved per quarter, and whatever your team lacks. See, for example, I'm going to run a campaign called MR cycle time from next month. The reason is, in my organization, they are taking almost 2 days to review a MR and get it approved. So it can be shortened, am I right? It can be shortened to almost around 1 day. So we are requesting them to run a campaign. We are not setting that to bring it below 1 day. Do not do that. We go by Kanban method in that case. We measure where we are currently. We are trying to improve from that factor. Do not set a number to reach there, which will be very damaging for the system, because people, as I said, will make you reach that number, but the real impact will not be there in this current, in the reality, okay? So that is one factor. But on the second point which Todd raised, yes, that's completely fine. Ensure whatever you are measuring as an at 100% clean data, you cannot expect. But at least reasonably and sensible data should be there for you to calculate for data-based metrics. Thank you. Thank you for your question. Yes, please. Are we done?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Priya, for your wonderful
Thank you.
session.